For more than a decade, the mystery of Oak Island has fascinated millions of people. Countless clues have been discovered, underground tunnels explored, and secrets buried beneath the island have slowly come to light. But now, the entire story could be approaching a major turning point. What if the biggest discovery has already been made? And what we are about to see is only the beginning. Recent developments surrounding the History Channel's Oak Island investigation could bring researchers closer than ever to understanding what really happened on the island. If the latest discoveries are any indication, the next episode, or even the next season, could take the mystery in a direction nobody expected. Because the question may no longer be simply, what is buried beneath Oak Island? The bigger question could be, what happens when the truth is finally uncovered? And whatever comes next could change the Oak Island story forever. The clue beneath the surface. For years, the search has focused on one legendary location, the Money Pit. But the deeper researchers looked, the stranger the story became. What appeared to be a simple underground shaft was surrounded by unusual structures and possible flood systems. These features suggest that someone may have deliberately designed the area to make whatever was hidden below extremely difficult to reach. That raises an important question. Why would anyone go to such extraordinary lengths to protect something if the Money Pit was simply an old treasure cache? The complicated construction is difficult to explain. But if the site was intentionally created as a hiding place, then every tunnel, chamber, and unusual structure could have been part of a much larger plan. This is where the investigation takes a dramatic turn. Some of the evidence found on Oak Island has led researchers to consider a remarkable possibility. The island may have been prepared long before the famous treasure hunt even began. If that is true, then the people who started digging there centuries ago may not have been the first to search for its secrets. They could have been following clues left behind by someone else. Suddenly, Oak Island becomes much more than a story about lost treasure. It could be the story of a carefully engineered secret that survived for generations because its creators knew exactly how to keep it hidden. But one question remains. If the Money Pit was designed to protect something, what was important enough to hide so carefully? The answer may be connected to a clue discovered somewhere no one expected. A clue that could take the investigation far beyond the island itself. The mystery beyond. Oak Island. The Oak Island mystery may be much bigger than a single underground chamber. For generations, investigators have uncovered artifacts, markings, structures, and unusual geological features that have fueled theories about who may have visited the island long before modern treasure hunters arrived. But what if Oak Island was never meant to be the final destination? What if it was only one piece of a much larger puzzle? That possibility changes how every discovery is viewed. Instead of treating each clue as a separate mystery, researchers can begin asking whether these seemingly unrelated pieces are actually connected. And this is where the story becomes even more fascinating. If someone deliberately chose Oak Island as a hiding place, there must have been a reason for selecting that particular location. Whoever created the site would have needed knowledge of the island's terrain, underground conditions, and perhaps even the surrounding coastline. In other words, the island itself may have been part of the secret. If that theory is correct, the strange structures beneath the ground may not have been built simply to hide something. They could have been designed to protect a trail that might eventually lead investigators to the people responsible and reveal what they were desperately trying to conceal. But there is one more clue that makes this possibility even harder to ignore. When researchers began looking beyond the famous Money Pit, they found evidence pointing toward a completely different area of Oak Island. And that discovery could be the key to understanding why this small island became the center of one of the world's greatest unsolved mysteries. The deeper the investigation goes, the clearer one thing becomes. The secrets of Oak Island may not end with the Money Pit. They may only begin there. The evidence that refuses to disappear. The deeper the Oak Island investigation goes, the harder it becomes to ignore the possibility that something on the island was deliberately constructed. For years, skeptics have argued that many of the island's unusual features could have natural explanations. Some may have been created by geological formations, old mining activity, or simply the result of centuries of treasure hunters digging and disturbing the land. But there is a problem with that theory. Not every clue fits. Some discoveries seem to point toward planning, organization, and a clear understanding of how the island's underground environment could be controlled. And when several unusual features appear within the same investigation, it becomes increasingly difficult to explain everything as coincidence. That is why the latest evidence matters so much. Rather than focusing on one dramatic discovery, researchers are beginning to look at the bigger picture. They are comparing different locations, studying historical records, examining artifacts, and searching for connections between clues that may have been separated by decades, or even centuries. And if those connections are genuine, the mystery may not be about discovering a single legendary treasure chest at all. It could be about uncovering an entire hidden operation. Think about what that would mean. A carefully chosen location, a deliberately designed underground system, clues that may have been left behind for someone to eventually discover, and a secret important enough to remain hidden for generations. That could explain why every time investigators seem to get close to an answer, another mystery appears. But there is one detail that could completely change the investigation. Among the many clues surrounding Oak Island are pieces of evidence that may help answer a question researchers have been asking for generations. Who had the knowledge, resources, and motivation to create something like this? Once that question is taken seriously, the Oak Island mystery begins to move in a very different direction. One that could bring researchers closer than ever to identifying the people responsible. The people behind the mystery. For years, the biggest question has seemed simple. What was hidden on Oak Island? But perhaps that isn't the right question. Before we can understand what was hidden, we may first need to understand who had the ability to hide it. Some of the island's most mysterious features have led researchers to consider the possibility that their creators possessed advanced knowledge of construction, water management, navigation, and underground excavation. If that is true, it immediately changes the picture. This may not have been the work of someone who simply buried an object and left. If the structures were intentionally designed, then whoever created them may have spent a tremendous amount of time planning the entire site, and making sure future explorers would struggle to reach whatever was hidden below. That leads to an extraordinary possibility. Maybe the greatest secret on Oak Island isn't a treasure chest at all. Maybe it is the identity of the people who arrived there first. Historical records, old maps, artifacts, and archaeological discoveries have all contributed to theories about different groups that may have had some connection to the island. Some of these theories are more convincing than others, while several remain highly controversial. But one thing is becoming increasingly difficult to deny. The more evidence researchers examine, the harder it becomes to view Oak Island as nothing more than an ordinary treasure hunt. And if the people behind the mystery really did leave a deliberate trail, then somewhere within that trail there should be a clue revealing what they were trying to accomplish. It could be a symbol, a signature, a connection to another location, or perhaps something far more tangible. And this is where the investigation reaches one of its most fascinating points. Because the next discovery may not tell us what was buried beneath Oak Island. Instead, it could finally help explain why it had to be buried there in the first place. Once that question is answered, the entire Oak Island mystery could take on a completely different meaning. What was worth hiding? If someone went to such extraordinary lengths to conceal something on Oak Island, one question becomes impossible to ignore. What could possibly have been important enough to justify all of this? For centuries, the obvious answer has been treasure, gold, silver, jewels, or perhaps a legendary lost fortune. But what if the truth is something completely different? What if the value of the secret wasn't measured in gold at all? That possibility could change everything researchers think they know about Oak Island. That theory is, of course, what helped make Oak Island famous. But the more researchers investigate, the more complicated the treasure explanation becomes. A hidden fortune would certainly be valuable, but money alone may not explain an elaborate underground system seemingly designed to confuse explorers, control water, and protect a hidden location for generations. So what if the real prize wasn't something that could simply be spent? What if it was something with historical, political, or even religious importance? That possibility opens an entirely different chapter in the Oak Island story. Throughout history, people have gone to extraordinary lengths to protect objects, documents, sacred items, and information that could potentially change our understanding of the past. If something like that was brought to Oak Island, perhaps the money pit wasn't simply a vault. It may have been intended as a kind of time capsule, a place where something could remain undisturbed until the right person eventually discovered it. That idea could help explain one of the most frustrating parts of the Oak Island investigation. The clues often seem to reveal just enough to keep researchers searching, while the ultimate answer remains frustratingly out of reach. But there is another possibility that makes the mystery even more interesting. If the original builders expected someone to eventually uncover what they had hidden, they may have left behind a deliberate message, a way for future investigators to recognize that they were getting closer. And researchers may have already discovered pieces of that message without fully understanding their importance. Because the next clue takes us away from the tunnels and the money pit, and towards something much larger. It could potentially connect Oak Island to a broader historical mystery. And if that connection is genuine, the treasure may turn out to be only the beginning of the story. The connection. No one expected. Until now, the Oak Island mystery has mostly been viewed as a question of what lies beneath the ground. But what if the most important clues aren't underground at all? As researchers examine old maps, historical records, artifacts, and the island's unusual features, another possibility begins to emerge. Oak Island may have been connected to events that took place far beyond its shores. That doesn't necessarily mean a single secret expedition or one legendary group was responsible for everything. The explanation could be much simpler or much more complicated. Perhaps there was a journey. Perhaps valuable objects were transported from one location to another. Perhaps Oak Island was chosen as a carefully planned hiding place. And perhaps the trail connecting everything stretches across the Atlantic. This is what makes Oak Island so fascinating. Several historical theories attempt to connect the island with people and events that existed long before the modern treasure hunt began. Some of these theories remain highly controversial, while others continue to attract attention because of fragments of evidence that appear to support them. But the most important question isn't whether every theory is correct. The real question is why so many different clues continue to raise the possibility of outside connections. If someone really did bring something important to Oak Island, they would have needed a way to transport it, protect it, and eventually hide it. That means the story may have started somewhere else entirely. Perhaps Oak Island was simply the final destination of a journey whose beginning has been lost to history. And now, researchers are left trying to reconstruct that journey from scattered pieces of evidence. But then comes one of the most intriguing possibilities. What if one of those missing pieces has already been discovered? What if it contains enough information to tell researchers where they should look next? If that clue can be properly connected to Oak Island's history, the investigation could potentially move beyond speculation and towards something much more concrete. And that is why the next discovery could be so important. It may provide the missing connection between the mystery beneath Oak Island and the people who may have brought the secret there in the first place. The mystery is far from over. After generations of searching, Oak Island has become much more than a hunt for buried treasure. It has evolved into a massive historical puzzle built from archaeology, speculation, forgotten stories, old records, and clues that have somehow survived for centuries. Perhaps that is exactly why the mystery has lasted so long. Every time researchers seem to get close to an answer, another question appears. One discovery may solve part of the puzzle, only to create an entirely new mystery. And maybe that is the most important lesson Oak Island has taught us. The real mystery may not simply be whether treasure exists beneath the island. It may be understanding why someone went to such extraordinary lengths to hide something there in the first place. Was it a fortune, a collection of historical artifacts, a lost document, or forgotten record? Or was it something completely different, something whose true importance has yet to be understood? At this point, no single theory can explain every question surrounding Oak Island. But the investigation has produced something almost as valuable as a final discovery. A growing body of evidence that continues to challenge what we thought we knew about the island. And that means the story may not be ending. In fact, it could be entering its most important chapter yet. If future excavations, archaeological research, or newly discovered historical records can finally connect the remaining pieces, the next major breakthrough could completely transform the story that has fascinated audiences for generations. So perhaps the biggest question isn't whether the Oak Island mystery is finally coming to an end. Maybe the real question is this: are we finally getting close enough to discover what the original builders never wanted the world to find? And if the next chapter reveals even one major piece of that puzzle, Oak Island could once again surprise everyone watching. Because sometimes the greatest mysteries aren't solved when the final clue is discovered. They are solved when we finally understand what all the clues were trying to tell us. And that is exactly why the next episode, or perhaps the next season, could become one of the most important chapters in the entire Oak Island story.